welcome to another beer review. And again, this is a bloody book. And yeah, this is part of the Christmas Advent beer review series. I remembered it this time. Yeah, so we've done a few different beers in the past from Lidl, and we looked at their kind of more kind of Hatherwood range, their kind of own range, and we really haven't done much in Aldi. So as part of this review series, we will be looking at Aldi, because obviously Aldi's got quite a lot of good bargains, and coming up for the kind of festive period and the kind of New Year period, then of course money's tight for people, but people still want to be able to kind of enjoy the festive season and have some celebrations, and of course they'll be meeting up with family and friends, and when money's tight, then you've got to try and make it go a bit further. And with the Hatherwood beers, fair play to them, they're quite good beers, and for the money, at £1.9 for 500ml, that's not a bad price. I mean, not bad at all. I mean, obviously there's other beers out there that are kind of similarly priced and that type of stuff, but compared to some of the beers that I've been looking at, that I know there's a lot of craft beers coming very, very small 330ml cans, but they don't seem to have any kind of how would you say, complex of or embarrassment when they're charging £4 and £5 a can. You know, you're thinking, seriously? Yeah, God, them hops are getting expensive, aren't they? But anyway, so yes, we're going to be doing some of the Aldi range as well, and Aldi has their own range, and tonight we'll be starting off with one of my kind of favourite tipples, which is a Ruby. Yes, so we're doing a Ruby Red Ale, and while the Hatherwood is the kind of Lidl's kind of own brand one, we have Harper's Brewing Company, which is basically kind of Aldi's one. So all this kind of, we'll be looking at the Harper's Brewing Company range. I think we've already looked, I think we looked at a lager from there, but it wasn't part of the Harper's Brewing Company range. And I remember about 2 lagers, or was it 3 lagers? I can't remember. But anyway, I think we've looked at one anyway. I think we've reviewed one already. There might be others, but anyway, there will be others, but I'm sure I've only reviewed one so far. But yes, so we're catching this on. Is there any spiel on it? It's 5%, 500ml, £1.9, funny enough. £1.9, who would have thought that? That's a kind of a strange number, you're thinking, £1.9? What a coincidence. Aldi, Harper's Brewing Company is selling their beer at £1.9. Exactly the same price as Lidl's Hatherwood beer range. There you go, eh? So obviously that just seems to be the optimum price. I don't know who basically came up with that price first or whatever, but they're obviously matching each other. Well, that's fine, that's not a problem. What they like in flavour and taste, well, we won't know that until we open the bottle. But anyway, there doesn't seem to be any spiel on it, whereas that's one thing I noticed with the new label range. Lidl's with their Hatherwood, they changed the names and the labels and everything else of theirs. Like a good example, they had the Gecko IPA, which became just the Hatherwood IPA, but there was a bit of spiel on the back and that type of stuff on the real label. There's nothing really there. It's more just to do with a deep mahogany beer with rich toffee apple and roasted chocolate flavours. Sounds quite nice, but chocolate flavours in a Ruby Red Ale? Maybe more of a porter or a stout. But anyway, let's give it a go anyway. Whoop, nearly dropped the damn thing. That'd have been a good one, wouldn't it? The wife would have killed me if that went off in the house. Oh, there we go. Oh, come on. Oh, and there's a hop on the lid. Right, so let's see how it pours. I'm quite looking forward to this, because this is one of my favourite kind of tipples. Ooh. Oh. Still some in the glass. Poured that well, didn't I? Disasters. Well, as you can see, it is ruby, it is red. Reminds me of the... I'm making an absolute arse of this, boys and girls. Look at that. Right, anyway. It's poured now. It should have a 2-finger head, but it's almost basically a 3-finger head because I made an arse of it. But anyway, it should probably roughly be a 2-finger head. I mean, if the head was any bigger than that, you'd be sticking a flake in it, wouldn't you? I mean, that's how much of a mess I made of that one. But anyway, smell-wise, probably not getting anything through a head that thick. I mean, seriously, try to sniff it through a duvet. But anyway. Not that I've ever tried to sniff anything through a duvet. Just clear that one up straight away. And no, I haven't even attempted it yet. Smell wise, no, not in the nose again. It's not really very pungent in aromas, put it that way. I'm getting very, very distant smells of malt. Yeah, that's all I'm getting is a very, very light and delicate aroma. I mean, I'm really struggling to smell it. I mean, that's all. A very, very light and delicate smell of kind of sweet malts. And that's it, nothing else. So, anyway. That. Oh, that's good. That's 2 balls down now. So, right. Out of 6 bulbs, we've now got 4. Oh, no, I thought it was a bit of doing a bit of Jesus there, and then he resurrects itself. Gee, I think these bulbs are buggered. Anyway. Before the light fitting blows up, let's get a taste of this. Listen to that. Well, that is a bit different. That's almost like an Irish red ale or a Scottish red ale. Bit of bitterness to it in the aftertaste, which is fine. I have no problem with that. It's not a lingering bitterness, but there's a bitterness there, and it just kind of dissipates to ever so slight kind of hint of sweetness, which is quite nice. You're getting, yeah. It is, you're getting ever so slight hints of chocolate, ever so slight hints. But I think that's more to... Seriously. So yes, you're getting slight hints of chocolate. Every time I say chocolate, it seems to buzz at me, but anyway. You're getting slight hints of chocolate, and I think that's obviously adding to the bitterness of it, to be totally honest. So yes, it's kind of providing the kind of bitterness that that you're getting before it kind of dissipates this ever so slight kind of slight sweetness, which is again is kind of emulating more kind of obviously high cocoa content chocolate. At the start, you know, it's quite difficult. Start you're getting a kind of maltiness, and I suppose you're getting a kind of sweetness with that. Back on now. So now Up to 5 out of 6. Jeez, I'm going to have to sort that out. No, another thing to bloody put on the list. But anyway, yeah. I would say yes. I don't think you get so much of the toffee apples, but you are getting a bit of maltiness to start with, which is giving you a little bit of sweetness kind of mid-tongue. But I wouldn't say toffee apples. I wouldn't say caramel really at all, or toffee. There is a bit of sweetness, but it's not that kind of molasses kind of sweetness or that kind of flavouring. Like I said, it actually says in the bottle there is a kind of slight chocolateness, and that's what's kind of giving you that kind of bitterness, not the kind of a molasses, burnt sugar kind of bitterness that you would probably get and associate a lot with these type of kind of ruby ales. But yeah. How would I rate it? This is a strange one because it's a nice beer. I wouldn't say it's kind of borderline sessionable. I would basically say it's kind of struggling in some ways because that level of bitterness, just the kind of aftertaste, is just kind of how would you say, it's kind of affecting the drinkability from that point of view, because you are kind of waiting for your mouth to kind of recover from it before you're having your next sip. It's not one of these ones you want to keep on glugging like you would probably do with some of the other ones. I mean, if you look at some of the other ruby ales we've done, the Hollywood one from Lidl's is more kind of drinkable, more sessionable. We've looked at obviously Hobgoblin Ruby beer, and it's very sessionable. Yeah, you can sing that, not a problem. So it's not quite as sessionable as that, to be totally honest. But there's plenty of flavours there, but not the kind of normal flavours I would associate with kind of a ruby ale. And I mean, while the bitterness isn't too bad, it's just enough just to kind of make you pause between sips or gulps or mouthfuls or whatever you want to say. But it's a nice beer. It's a nice beer, but it is different and it's a bit kind of unusual for the style of beer it is. I mean, with some of these flavour profiles you would associate more with a porter than you would with this type of beer. So but yeah, it's not bad. It's something maybe a bit different, but yes, it's definitely kind of more towards a porter kind of flavour spectrum than a ruby ale. Sort of also in the kind of slight aftertaste, I'm also getting little hints of coffee. Just ever so slightly now and again, I'm just getting little kind of accents of espresso. Which isn't surprising with you. If you get a lot of times, if you get chocolatey, you're going to get little kind of coffee accents as well. So yeah, and it's not really the type of beer that you should be getting that, but so yeah, it's kind of unusual. But what would I give it out of 5? If I went to, like, say, head to head for this type of beer, I'm going to give this a 2.5. I'm going to give it an average. Not because it's badly brewed or anything like that type of stuff, but if I'm looking at it, I've got Hobgoblin Ruby beer, and that's £3.99 a can, and that's 4.8. If I go for the Hobgoblin Ruby beer in a bottle, it's 5.2, and it's only £1.25 a bottle. The Hatherwood is roughly about kind of, I think it's roughly about kind of 4.85%, and that's £1.9. This is 5%, £1.9, and I've got to turn around and say I prefer the Hobgoblin or the Hatherwood as a ruby beer, because they have more of the kind of traditional flavours of a ruby beer. So if I'm looking to buy a ruby beer, then I'm looking for the ruby kind of flavour profiles, the kind of the molasses, burnt sugar kind of bitterness, the caramel, the toffee, that type of stuff, the maltiness, all that kind of stuff that I'm not really getting here. So while this is quite a nice beer, it's not really giving me the flavour profile. So if I'm really kind of, oh, I really do fancy a kind of ruby beer tonight, if I bought this I'd be disappointed. So that's what I'm going to kind of really judge it on. If I look at it from a beer in its own right, then it's a kind of a mixed up cookie, and that's why it's getting a 2.5, because it's looking and acting like a ruby beer but tasting more like a kind of heading towards a kind of porter spectrum. If I compare it to the likes of Hatherwood or say the Hobgoblin, which we've reviewed both of them in the channels in, it's nowhere near as good as these two, because they are actually proper ruby beers and this just doesn't really have that. So it's a 2.5. My view is £1.9. If you're near an Aldi, why not pop in and get a couple just to kind of try. I mean, would I buy it again? I'd maybe buy it again for just to have in reserve for something just to kind of drink. Would I buy it again for a kind of a ruby kind of beer flavour profiles because I fancy one? Definitely not, absolutely not, because it just isn't. So yeah, kind of struggling from that point of view, but yeah, it's okay. But if you want that kind of flavour profile of a ruby ale or a ruby beer, then you're better to go with the likes of Hobgoblin or Hatherwood within this kind of price spectrum from that point of view. So anyway, that's us for this evening. Thanks for watching, cheers, and bye for now.